Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't think maybe it was necessary to introduce myself, but maybe it is. So anyway, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Randy Scott, and I'm George Scott's youngest sibling. So welcome here, folks. On behalf of Bev Scott and her family, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon to pay tribute to George Scott. I wrote this out because it's about the only way I was going to really, maybe possibly pull it off. So bear with me. It seems unreasonable that anybody could really capture someone's life in just 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm not really attempting that, but I would like to share some of my memories of George with you. George Scott worked hard, made a living in Toronto, raised a wonderful family, and that's what he was all about. He was a dedicated family man, both his immediate family and his extended family. George made friends and acquaintances just about everywhere. Well, not just about. Everywhere he landed, George made friends and acquaintances. You can't speak to anybody in Kellyford that doesn't know George and Bev Scott. I tried that, it doesn't work, so. Matter of fact, I had the curse of, oh, you look just like him. And I guess that's okay, we'll go with that. My memories of George, though, are a bit different, maybe because I'm the youngest of 8. He was nearly the oldest of 8. So my memories of George kind of started by the time he was already gone out into the world and making a living. I was being born. So I never actually lived at home with George. But make no mistake, I look forward to just about every weekend, if not every weekend, every other weekend, they came down to the family farm, and that gave excuse for the rest of my siblings to roll in, and it was party time at Mount Pleasant every weekend. As I said, he was very inspiring towards family and family events. When I look way back at those times on the farm when he'd come down, it was him that got everybody going. It was maybe a crokinole tournament in the dining room. It was sleigh riding behind the barn, or maybe playing hockey back in our neighbor's swamp. But at any rate, he was always stirring something up. And I even recall one time the dining room table got moved and they were dancing in the dining room. So you never knew what was going to happen when he came down. In the summertime, he couldn't wait to get the chores all done. He'd help out because he knew he had to do that. Clarence made sure. So if we could get that out of the way, we could go off to Oak Lake or maybe just back to the Lloyd King's Mill to swim. Anything at all to get us going, get us having fun. That's what he was all about. He was inspirational in starting, this is kind of a joke too, starting a family fishing trip that we did for, I think, 12 years. I don't know, somebody else probably knows, but it doesn't matter. Good number of years, and none of us liked fishing. But we did it every year regardless. And he was the one that said, hey, guys, we ought to have a family fishing trip. And he didn't even have a fishing pole or anything else for that matter. But anyway, that's what he was. That's what he did. And I recall another time as I'll never forget, and none of the rest of my brothers and sisters will either. There was a niece getting married in Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia. Well, that's a long way away for a bunch of people like us down in Stirling and wherever else we were. And it appeared as though there was a bunch that were not going to be able to go. George wasn't settling for that. He borrowed an old school bus from the Baptist church that he attended come down. We all piled on and we all went to Cape Breton Island on an old school bus. But we were all there. That's the point. He made her. I'd like to leave you with, these are memories for most all of us actually, but I have a couple, excuse me, particularly fond memories of my own. He helped me out a few times in the transport company that I was working at, and the people in the office got to know him. And they heard about his diagnosis and his bad luck, and they wanted to do something special for him and myself. So they give us not just any tickets, but tickets to see the Senators play Toronto Maple Leafs in Ottawa. And it was valet parking, private entrance, our own bar, or the whole deal. And they put us up in the Welland House guest suite for the evening. And by the way, the Leafs won. That's kind of unusual, I guess. But at any rate, he had the time of his life. And that was only, he was struggling with chemotherapy. It was towards the end there. So to pull that off, it was pretty cool. I'll not forget it real soon. The other thing that's important to me is one day in August, just before, it wasn't long, he phoned Ron to come to our place for the afternoon. Of course, he's always welcome. And there was just something about him that day. He just was completely content. We sat out in the sun, and I was struggling with that, but he was cold. And we just chatted, watched my horses graze, and that's how I last was with George. It was very special to me. Someone said to me that there seemed to be a special bond between him and myself. That was Rayburn, in case you want to know. Well, there was. And he was pointed it out to me several times. And what that was, well, we both took early retirement from secondary education. That was we both did that well. We both married quite young. And I think we might have been the same age, actually. Was he 19 when he got married then? So was I. See? There you go. We both drove big trucks, commercial trucks, for a living. We both took heart attacks and ended up working inside for trucking companies. And we both, not me yet, but he took his bride to the end, the same one, so death did part, and I intend to do the same thing. So that's all about George and Randy. There you go. At this time, I'm going to call on some other folks. To start us off here, I'd like to get Cassie Farrell to come up, please. That's a granddaughter of George's.
I don't get told that often. Today, however, I'd like to tell you about George as a grandfather and the grandpa experience that he provided to those of us lucky enough to have been his grandchildren. I always knew that Grandpa was fun, and Grandpa was sweet, and that Grandpa was known around town by everyone. Grandpa always welcomed us with open arms. He always wanted to have us at his house and always planned fun activities for while we were there. For many years, I thought this was just the way that grandpas were, that everyone's grandfathers were like this. So much so that I'm sure I took them for granted during those years. It wasn't until much later that I realized just how special my grandpa was, that they weren't all like that, and that my grandpa put a lot of effort and love into the amazing grandpa experience that he created for us. It sounds silly to say, but I'm sure that George was born to be a grandpa. He took such joy and pride in his role as a grandfather. I can still hear the way that he would beam while he announced to anyone listening, and sometimes those who weren't, that I was his granddaughter. The way he would parade me around Campbellford or the golf course, seemingly just to announce that I was his granddaughter. I remember when he finally let me cut his lawn, he literally walked right beside me, directing every move I made on his beloved grass. But when I was done, he was so proud that I had cut the lawn all on my own. He may have just been proud of his directing skills, I don't know. But either way, he made 10-year-old me feel like it was the accomplishment of a lifetime. Every time I was at his house, he worked hard to make the dining special thing there for me. There were seemingly small gestures like taking me to get my favorite treats from the bakery, to always making time for the flea market that I loved, or planning lunch trips in the canoe. He was never short on ideas to keep the fun going. Grandpa was always trying to plan big events to lure all his grandchildren in and lasting memories. For the boys, I believe the golf trip was one of the most memorable, fishing trip I think we just heard about. And of course, Grandpa would never forget about his girls. From overnight camping in the canoes to musicals in the city, he was always trying to plan fun events that he could share with his grandchildren. Even without elaborate plans, Grandpa always seemed to delight and entertain us kids. At most events, I can remember all the adults would be off adulting together, but Grandpa would be surrounded by us, either chasing us with his dentures out, teaching us to build fires, or telling us about scary stories about escaped convicts while sitting around that fire. In the winter, you could find his labor of love in the form of a hockey rink on the river out back of his house. Again, always thinking of his grandchildren and how he could bring us joy. One of my favorite Grandpa features was the way he would retell stories about us. As the years went by, the stories would get more and more elaborate. He would bait you with some ridiculous addition to the story, so we would go toe-to-toe telling that story and our own versions of a 20-year-old story. I loved it, and I loved the way that he loved it. And I loved that Grandpa could make a new memory out of reliving old memories. Another endearing Grandpa quality was how he could be so proud of you for something that you really hadn't done. My husband found a side road to take from our place to theirs, and Grandpa was beyond thrilled with this. For years, whenever he was spending an era with us around, he would brag about the beautiful scenic route that Mark had found, and how much he loved taking this way home now, asking us every time we went to see him if we had taken that new route. It wasn't new anymore. I started to wonder if maybe he thought we had built that road. Grandpa also made it extremely easy to look up to him as a person. I used to always think everyone knew him simply because they lived in a small town. But again, as I continued to watch him, I realized it wasn't simple at all. It was how he treated his fellow man. He was kind to everyone that he met. He took the time to really talk to them, ask their names, ask how they're doing, ask about their families. Grandpa had a way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room. He was completely focused on you and genuinely interested in what you had to say. This again is something that he made look so natural and easy, but as I try to live up to that example, I can tell you it's not. It takes effort. I've had a long time to write this out and try to articulate just how special my grandpa was. I feel like I could stand here for hours recounting stories or listing all the things that I admire about him. But it wasn't just the things that he did. It was just the way that he was and the way that he loved you. It's said that great events can leave an imprint on this earth. Their impact so great that it can be felt long after the event is over. I now know that great people can too. The imprint that Grandpa has left on this world, on me, and on our hearts will last forever.
Thanks, Bessie. Now we have a tribute with Nicole, George's other grandmother. So can you call on Nicole?
I'm going to be the musical entertainment, but I think we're going to drift your eyes over to this TV When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case, I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel mine. When the evening shadows and the stars appear, then there's no one there to dry your tears. I could hold you for a million years to make you feel mine. I know you haven't made your mind again, but I would never do wrong. I've known it from the moment that we met. No doubt in my mind where you belong. I go hungry, I go black and blue. I go crawling down the avenue. No, there's nothing that I wouldn't do to make you feel mine. Storms are raging on the rolling sea and on the highway of grace. The winds of change are blowing wild and free, but you ain't seen nothing like me yet. I could make you happy, make your dreams come true. Go to the ends of the earth. No, there's nothing that I